All right, on this installment of Bare Knuckle Bowker, very excited to be talking to an individual who I felt had one of the more standout performances at Gamebred Bare Knuckle MMA's last event, which transpired on November 15th, getting an emphatic finish over Curtis Millender and keeping quite the impressive winning streak going on. And seems like there's a lot of great opportunities in the future for Jesse Ronson, and great having Canada's number one ranked fighter on Bare Knuckle Bowker. How you doing, man?
I'm good. My dog just came in and he smells like weird cheese. I'm gonna have to give him a bath or something. But yeah, no, I feel good. It's good to be talking with you. You're a very knowledgeable guy.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, that's a great sentiment. I mean, I just love getting to talk to you because I feel like you're. I'm trying to remember who posted this. I want to say it was like maybe like Lee Meehan, maybe, or someone like that. Like they were describing you as like the fighter's fighter. Like you're just a guy that really embodies that spirit. Like I guess that adage of like, oh, your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, like that sort of spirit to it almost. So, yeah, just love getting to talk to you, man. Appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, no, that's actually good to hear. I kind of remember something along those lines, but a lot of people have told me like I was built for bare knuckle mixed martial arts. A lot of people are telling me to switch over to bare knuckle boxing, but when Gamebred made their bare knuckle MMA, we jumped right in on that. It sucks that they had this was their eighth show, so I've been on two. It would have been nice to get on it back when they first started, but it is what it is. I'm there now, and I've worked my way up the ranks. So yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, worked your way up in the rankings to such a point that you're now poised to become that inaugural Gamebred Bare Knuckle MMA welterweight champion. And just a bit before I kind of got the recording going on the call, it seemed like there was some discourse about potential opponents and could be even as early as February from what you were kind of saying. So can you kind of get into some of the specifics of that? Because that sounds intriguing.
yeah. So when I was negotiating to fight Curtis Millender, he wanted 175, and I'm like 175, man. Like what's going on here? It's September. We have 2 months. Why can't he make 170? And then the matchmaker, Dean Toole, sweetened the pot and goes, well, 175, and the winner of this fight gets the title shot next year in February or March. February/March is what he said. And I was like, oh, shit. And then he originally said that the opponent would be Henderson Ferreira. So the winner between me and Curtis would get Henderson Ferreira. But then Henderson Ferreira went out and lost to Delano Taylor in like a minute. But that wasn't in bare knuckle. That was in a different promotion. As far as I know, Henderson's still undefeated in bare knuckle, so it still might be him in February. But at the end of the last show, I was asking about it, and I was like, "So, do I get the title shot?" And Dean Toole said, "Oh yeah, you're getting that title shot." And then Jorge Masvidal himself said, "You're getting the title shot." We shook hands, and I didn't get a chance to ask them if it would still be the same guy, Henderson Ferreira. But then I was doing an interview with the Gamebred media guy, Carlo Perusa, and he brought up the likes of Kevin Lee. And I was like, oh shit. And they're like, yeah, I feel like they could throw that name in the mix because there's some history there. And I'm like, well, I feel like that's the money fight. And I would love that rematch. And like I said, it's the money fight. I could ask for more money. Like I'm not going to tell you how much money they offered me for Henderson Ferreira, but I know I could get more for a Kevin Lee fight as it would draw huge because everybody hates Kevin Lee and like they only watch his fights to see him get beat. Um, and then the third name was Francisco Trinaldo, which Marlon Moraes threw in the mix. Commented directly on my interview post, and Carlo brought that up. And Trinaldo trains with Jorge in Florida, so there's that connection there. And again, there's another dude that beat me. So it's like I lost to Kevin Lee on the 4th of July weekend in Vegas, and he's an American. And then I lost to Francisco Trinaldo in Brazil in his hometown, both fights by split decision. So it's like you put those fights anywhere else, and it might go my way. Obviously, that was what 11 years ago now. So everybody's older. Like Francisco Trinaldo's like 48, and Kevin Lee's a broken down golf cart at like 31 or 32, consistently pulling out of fights from injury. So it's like I'm down to fight either of them. I know I'll kill any of those three guys, just based on how much I've advanced and gotten better, and my confidence has gotten better. My overall mental aspect of the game has gotten so much better, and I'm not killing myself to make weight anymore. I feel strong. I am strong. And it's like, I'm very excited to see what the future holds. I'm waiting for that call because if it's February, they better tell me now because they're going to have to start advertising. Because you think about it, it's December tomorrow. So it's December, January, and then it's like immediately February. It's like, holy shit, I got to get back into a training camp. So I'm hoping it's March, but we'll see. They might just like 2 weeks into December, December 14th, 15th, be like, hey, yeah, it's February, 15th. It's like, shit. Hopefully you're in shape.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I mean, I feel like there's so much I can even respond to in that because like, Kevin Lee was initially supposed to be on this Gamebred Bare Knuckle MMA card, but you'd made some comment about the fact that you think he's injury prone. Like, was that why he wasn't on the card? He'd sustained an injury because I know he had a gloved MMA fight in kind of close proximity to that card.
Yeah, so what was it September 30th or 31st or something like that? He
Something
fought
like yeah.
a guy, beat him in the first round. Adam Asenza fought that guy too, and it went to a draw. Um, Either way, the guy that he beat is was on a 7 fight losing streak, and then had the draw with Asenza, and then Lee smoked him. The guy that he was supposed to fight on Gamebred, I looked him up, and he's lost his last like 16 fights between boxing and MMA. The guy's it's just red, straight down on Tapology, just all red. I'm like, holy fuck. Pardon my French, but it's like in order for Kevin Lee to pull out on the Monday of fight week versus a dude that lost his last 16 fights, who's fought, at 45, Kevin is hurt, or he got an offer somewhere bigger, like the PFL or Bellator offered him something, or maybe he got back. Nobody said anything. I don't know anything. I don't care to research what's going on in Kevin Lee's life, but he had to have been seriously hurt not to take a fight versus a dude that was on a 16-fight losing streak. Because it's like I would have taken that fight with a broken arm and like missing a left foot. Like, how do you not agree to fight a guy? It doesn't matter how hurt you are. A guy lost his last 16 fights. I'm pretty sure he could have toughed it out, but Kevin's the king of not taking risks. He loves to cherry pick and everything else. I bet he couldn't afford to have a bad showing against a guy that lost his last 16 fights. Because if that fight went to a decision, or even if the guy had a miraculous, it didn't matter. If Kevin looked bad, it just probably wouldn't do his career or whatever he's got going on in his life any justice. And he would just be stuck in the shitter for a while. But yeah, I don't know. But he pulled out on the Monday and they like immediately took him off the card and everything else. And then that was that for Kevin.
And that was kind of the sentiment I also got because I was assigned an article by Sportskeeda to cover Kevin Lee getting into the Gamebred Bare Knuckle MMA fold. And it was kind of like a fans react type of a piece. And it seemed like a lot of the sentiment was kind of highlighting the record of the opponent, which, like, I mean, there's going to be fighters like that in the sport for sure. But at the same time, it's like if you're, in some level of discussion to get a title fight or anything of that persuasion, it definitely is like a not stellar look for sure. But yeah, when I'd seen he was on the card, that was kind of immediately how my brain started kind of working because it seemed like in the post about your fight with Millender, it was talking about how the winner would punch their ticket to that inaugural welterweight title fight and just the history you have with Kevin on the card. And yeah, it just seemed like it made a great deal of sense, but good to hear that you have a couple other options all the same as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't think Kevin Lee is at all deserving of a title shot, but again, that's a fight that I would love to get back. And you know what? He is coming off a win. He beat that dude that's I can't remember his name. But anyways, yeah, he lost his last 7 fights and then got into a draw with Asenza. So it's like, do you really deserve a title shot walking into a promotion? Based off of what he's done recently, not really. Like his biggest win is 43-year-old Diego Sanchez by decision. Other than that, he's lost his like last 5 UFC fights. So, but yeah, as for Trinaldo, like I said, he's coming off a couple wins. I don't know, but his Gamebred Bare Knuckle debut, the guy that he fought hurt his knee. They didn't really get going. It was like a minute into it, and there wasn't really much done. But it's like, do you want to give him a title shot off that win? But it's like, I get it. You're Jorge's buddy. You train together, but he's 47 or 48 years old. It's like, how much more can Trinaldo do if they get even? I'm not even sure he wants to fight. His name was just thrown in the mix, and because he hasn't fought since he beat that dude by injury in a minute, but he's still training. I follow him. He's a great guy, and he's training all the time. I see him. He's still in great shape for how old he is, and still in the mix with all those young guys. And like I said, it would be a good fight to get back. And I'm 0-4 versus Brazilians. So, I'd love to at least get one win on a Brazilian. So whether it's Henderson Ferreira or Francisco Trinaldo, doesn't matter. Just give me a Brazilian and let me beat him so I can wipe that 0-4 off there.
Yeah, I mean, just cool to see you have so many options, man. Like you've been on a great streak and everything like that, and some of the different times we've spoken over the years, like it just seems like you've been eyeballing certain options, and this just seems like such a perfect fit out of all the different ideas that you've even expressed to me that you would be open to, and that seemed to reflect in some of the sentiments from some of your previous game bred fights. Like I saw some Reddit discourse kind of talking about it and everything like that. And I'd be curious to get your insights on all this because this is also something I've kind of thought about a bit. Like there was someone who was talking about how just based on the nature of that finish, it might have been like a bit smoother to secure that grip without the gloves covering the wrist. And that seems to be the sentiment from some people, just in terms of like the Gamebred Bare Knuckle MMA framework, just providing much more, I guess, fluidity in a certain sense with the grappling. Is
Yeah.
that something that you've noticed in your anecdotal experience with it?
Of course. The glove is a huge benefit for people that just want to swing. You don't have to, you can just swing and you're not going to break your hand. You take that glove off. Now you have to be consciously aware of what you're doing because you will hurt your hands. You will break them. As for the grappling, it's like people can hold the gloves. I fought a few people that put their fingers inside the gloves. I've had chokes before on people, and they'll grab the padding on the top of your hand and pull it down. Like the glove's annoying, or it's like you can't slide it through because it's too thick and they're holding it too tight. Whereas your greasy little fingers can just slide right on in through. There's nothing. It's the real purest form of combat is just bare knuckle, and it's like, well, put a glove on. It's like, why do we need to put a glove on? There's no need for that. And it's like, oh, if you had a glove, that would have changed. They would have made it out of that, or Curtis would have made it out of that fight. He wouldn't have been able to defend it. It's like, yeah, well, you don't need to, like, there's no gloves. Get used to it. Like, this is the next thing. This is the next big thing. So it's like people saying, well, with this and that, it's like, well, too fucking bad. These are the rule sets. There's no gloves. And it's like, we have to modify our training for it. The casual MMA fan can get past the glove. I know some people, like when I beat Anthony Noah and Jaquani, some people were butthurt. They lost money. When I beat Curtis, some people still, they didn't like it because, people have favorites. So if they want to throw it in, oh, you only won because there's no gloves. Well, boo-hoo.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an odd sentiment. It's like we agreed upon these rules. Like I ended up winning. Like it just kind of is what it is. Like to
Yeah.
credit it just to the, I guess, lack of gloves strikes me as a bit odd, but I was just kind of thinking about this because I've interviewed Curtis before, like not necessarily before this fight per se, but I've
Mhm.
spoken to him before some like glove boxing action that he had in some MMA fights, and not like a verbatim quote per se, but the sentiment was essentially like, yeah, I'm not looking to do bare knuckle, like I'm looking to stay in sports that have gloves. So must be something going on with Gamebred Bare Knuckle MMA where it's like drawing in some of these people who, like I said, in the anecdotal experience I've had talking to Curtis specifically, when we were kind of chopping it up, he was like, "Yeah, I don't know that I'm looking to throw down in any form of bare knuckle competition, so it must be something they're doing right over there to entice some of those guys over and all."
Yeah, so Curtis is a great guy. I really enjoyed talking with him after the fight. Like he wasn't an asshole. He wasn't whatever. He's a showman, so he loves his WWE, so he loves to go back and forth and sell a fight and taunt and everything. But when it was done, he was like manners, like great. He was a gentleman. I didn't know that he owns a few businesses, like a restaurant and a bar. He's a father and he's a good father. But he broke his hand on my face. His knuckle was swollen up, like he was like his middle knuckle and index knuckle were like gone and just big fat
Uh,
ball. And yeah, he told me he wasn't a fan of the bare knuckle, but they pay well, and a fight's a fight, and he's a fighter, so he's not going to back away from it. I know when I fought Anthony Noah and Jaquani, I banged up my middle knuckle, and it's swollen to this day. It's way larger than it should be, but that was me. I threw a punch like I had a glove on, so my hand wasn't properly closed, and I broke the capsule in my knuckle. So
uh,
yeah, it sucks. You like it's big time different. I know a lot of people that don't want to do it because they're afraid to break their hands, and it's like you can't fight if you have broken hands or sore hands or whatever. Like in a boxing glove, it's a little different. It's a even if your hand is broken, you can still kind of fight it off. Uh, but in a bare knuckle boxing or bare knuckle MMA fight, it's like your hand's broken, you're fucked because it's like now your fingers like you got to grab, you got to do it. Like if you can't use that hand, you're down a weapon, you're guaranteed to lose, man. It's just it's different. It's literally it's way different than MMA with a glove on. And it's like people think, oh, we're just savages and idiots and whatever else. It's like, no, you have to be. There are idiots out there. I watch bare knuckle boxing and they just swing for the fences, and it's like those fights end in 30 seconds, or if it makes it past the first round, the fight's over because their hands are broken or their face is fucked. It's like you need to be smarter and you need to pick and choose what you're doing with your strikes, or like I said, you lose it, you're probably done.
Yeah, and I feel like with BKFC, I've seen this, but probably also with Gamebred Bare Knuckle MMA to a degree. I think like a big factor is kind of like what you were touching on there, just like the approach and like just realizing the meta game is a bit different if you're going to go at it with gloves versus without gloves. So from what I've seen, like with like the real high level, high pedigree kind of fighters, it's like they do realize there are those differences and stuff like that. Like I guess a guy I'm kind of thinking of just as a random example is like Austin Trout, for instance. Like I felt like he didn't approach bare knuckle in the same way as gloved boxing. Like he realized it was a different game and realized he had to shore up more in terms of his, clinch fighting acumen and stuff like that. So I think a lot of that with the high level guys, like their success, it's kind of predicated on that sort of thing. I guess just realizing the meta game is different. You can't just like wing bombs as if you were, wearing gloves.
Yeah, no, it's when I spar with gloves on, I'm a combination guy. Like I throw big power and I throw 3 and 4 shots and a kick. When I spar with MMA gloves, it's, I'm still 1 or 2 shots and a kick. When it's bare knuckle, I'm picking and choosing. It's like one, 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 because you can't afford to throw in volume because again, if you hit the top of the head or you hit something, an elbow, it's over. Your hand is it's like our hands aren't meant to be hitting skulls and whatnot. Obviously, if you connect, you could really hurt a guy. Like Curtis Millender switched southpaw on me. He threw 3 shots, cut my eye twice, and cut the bridge of my nose. I was like, holy shit, that's just from 3 punches, right? But he broke his fucking hand doing that, and he hit me in the eye socket in the nose. And it's like that's not even the hardest part of my head, and he broke his hand. So it's a big difference. Like even when I'm training, because I still do glove training and like I try to focus like now that I'm doing bare knuckle, I try to do things more bare knuckle, like hit the bag, hit pads. I always wrestle and do jujitsu bare knuckle, like no gloves, but it's like your mindset changes when you have the protection on your hands. Like I noticed that when I'm wearing a glove, like a 10-ounce glove or a 16-ounce glove, I'm like, my hand's not even fucking closed. What the hell's going on? What am I thinking? And it's like I have to when I close it, it makes like the thud and the sound is way different, but it's like you can just let it go, let it fly because there's no real danger to your hands. So yeah, bare knuckles not for everybody. That's the moral of the story.
And I feel like I've heard from, I guess more so specifically like bare knuckle boxers, but I would think it would be the same all throughout in a sense. Like a lot of them seem to talk about how you almost can tell in that first fight whether or not this is like a really good fit. Did you have any kind of, I guess, epiphany moment or I guess defined juncture in your first bare knuckle MMA fight where you were like, okay, like this is like a great framework and rule set for me?
Yeah. My opponent, Anthony Njokuani, is a very dangerous striker and he's a volume striker. And it's like watching his tape, he had a guy hurt against the cage. I think it was Brendan Jenkins, where it's like if he was wearing a glove, he would have just been winging fucking shots. You could actually see he was pausing and looking, trying to find openings on where to hit him because again, he knows it's like you can't just swing and hit an elbow or something hard. So it's like he would have won that fight and put the guy away if he was wearing gloves, but the fact that he wasn't, he had to be more consciously aware. And when I fought him, again, he's a volume guy, but now he's slowing down to pick and choose what he's throwing and where he's throwing it to. And that plays to my game perfectly. Like I love the single shots, accuracy, beats timing or accuracy and timing, all that stuff. Like accuracy is fine. So it's like I love single shots and placing them well. And I'm trying to remember the quote where it's like there's speed and power, but timing beats speed and what is it? Precision beats power. So it's like that's all it takes is like you could be a non-power puncher, but in bare knuckle, you land that one little shot somewhere sweet, it's over. So that plays up to my game because I'm very analytical and I think a lot when I'm in there. And that's been a kind of a detriment to my career. But I'm able to block out a lot of noise and still think and just go into autopilot. It's weird. I can't explain it, but it works for me. And the game just kind of bare knuckle. It just kind of slows down, just based off of other people. Because again, you can't be a crazy. If they gave me a crazy wild lunatic, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it would go. I think I would win, but I would win by them hurting themselves and not me hurting them. Because it's like you need to think with bare knuckle, despite um, what everybody says about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is starting to change a bit, like some of that sentiment, because I think there is definitely a certain like, methodology and, fight IQ to it. I think it's probably just a
Yes.
familiarity thing. Like the more we see of it, the more it becomes familiarized and people talk about it in a certain way. But that is something that's interesting about watching you fight because it does strike me as like very analytical, measured, cerebral, etc. But at the same time, you're getting just such a steady stream of first round finishes. Like you're not forcing the issue or being defensively irresponsible, but yet you're getting these guys out here in the first round every time while not like overly forcing the issue so as to be in like a prone or like bad position in a certain sense yourself. So a cool middle
Mhm.
ground with those two things, it seems.
Yeah. I don't know how many people can say they have seven wins in a row, let alone 7 wins with first round finishes. Now, don't want to toot my own horn, but four of those guys have Ultimate Fighter or UFC experience, and one of them was in the PFL. So 5 out of the 7 guys have high level experience, and I'm still putting these guys away. Um, but again, like you said, there's a high level of fight IQ that goes into it. And it's like, if I can be methodical, there's no reason why in a bare knuckle fight, I shouldn't, or anybody for that matter, shouldn't win in the first round. If you're actively trying to kill somebody, like what you should, you're literally fighting another person for money. You know what I mean? It's like, why wouldn't you? Like, who wants to pace themselves for a decision? Like, I'm not there for a long time. So it's like, we got to get them out of there. A lot of people criticized my Curtis Millender fight, saying, "Oh, you were standing in front of him too much, um, you know, taking too many shots." I think he hit me like 6 or 7 times. It looked like he hit me a lot more because of the damage that I was wearing. But that's part of the game plan was in order for me to beat Curtis Millender at 6'4" with like a 78, 79-inch reach, I needed to be in his face and I needed to pressure him. Yeah, I tried moving my head, but when I was moving my head, he was moving his feet. So it's like it's difficult to play the catch-up game. So it's like I had to stay in his face and pressure him. That was it. I had to make him nervous, feint him, fake him, right? Because he was throwing more, but then he slowed down on throwing once he realized he's like, holy shit, this guy's eating my stuff and he's staying in my face. That's part of the game plan. Had it gone to round two, I would have changed it up and done things differently because like I said, we have a game plan, but the game plan's not an intricate manuscript. But first round was all about that pressure staying in front of his face. And like I said, a lot of people didn't like it, but yeah, I got cut twice and whatever else, but I still won first round. And that's intimidating. Yeah, it's building my confidence. But then people look at it, they're like, dude, Curtis Millender first round, Anthony Noah Jaquani first round, 2 UFC vets, that's first round. Before that, Robert Hale, PFL vet, the first round. It's like, holy shit. And then, I beat what the hell's that other guy's name? Vargas first round, right? It's like, holy fuck, this guy's putting people away. And it's methodical thinking and not being overreactive asshole and a swinging for the fences dummy and whatever else that you see. You're right. It's all part of the plan. Fight IQ.
Yeah, just such a cool thing to watch. Like I said, such a great framework and, shouting out the person who instantiated that framework, like Jorge Masvidal. I mean, it just seems like such a great team at, Gamebred anyway. Like Dean Toole seems like a great matchmaker and
Oh,
all
he's a
that. Like,
phenomenal good guy. Like Dean Toole, it's not his job to do some of the stuff. And like I saw him like, hey Dean, where can I do this? Where can I do that? And he's just like, I know. He just literally looked at me and goes, I'm gonna get you set up. Everything you need. What do you need? And it's like I can't go up to Dana White and be like, "Hey, Dana, where can I get 5 towels? Like, what can I do for this? What can I do for that?" Like, he just going out of his way to help me. And then it's like, if he couldn't help me, he literally got on his phone and called somebody from the Gamebred team to specifically come and help me. Like the Gamebred team, Yeah, there's not as much money as the UFC in there, and they don't have all the fancy, perks and whatever else, but they're a tight-knit family, and they're probably, without a doubt, the best work crew that I've ever been a part of and been able to work with. It's so nice and refreshing to see, and they're all so very fucking helpful. Because again, they've all been in the fight game. Jorge's been in the fight game. He knows what it's like. He knows how the UFC treats you. So it's like he tries to do the same for his guys. And it's the Gamebred crew is awesome.
Yeah, because I was going to kind of even put that out there, like you touched upon it well there. Just this idea that because Jorge Masvidal has been such a high level fighter, like now that he's a promoter, he would be able to just give the exact thing that all these fighters need and stuff like that. Like he knows the fighter mentality and everything through fight week and how to, I guess, be present, be accommodating, however you want to phrase that thought. So cool that you've had good interactions with him in the promoter role and everything.
Yeah, Jorge himself. Yeah, he's a gangster. He is probably one of the nicest guys, very well spoken, but it's like you can tell if you cross him, he will fuck you up on the spot. Like that's but he's a super cool guy, super nice, and again, another dude that's super helpful, and he just flat out says it straight up. He's like, I just want fireworks, guys. He's like, I'll pay you, I'll do whatever, just give me good fights. He's like, I don't care how old you are, if you lose or whatever it is. He's like, I'm not the UFC where we're gonna cut you after two fights or three fights. If you're making people scream and getting views, he's like, you're always welcome back, and he's like, and I'll take care of you. And he's like, I'll try to meet everything you need. He's a great promoter, and you're right, because he's fought, he understands what it's like. He tries to do the press conferences and all that other stuff, but he understands. He's like, who's cutting weight, who's doing what. Um, yeah, it's again, I'm not gonna shit on Dana White or Scott Coker or whoever from the PFL, but it's like if they fought and they went through it, they would know what it's like. And I'm sure fight week would change a little bit. Like I said, if Jorge had the money that the UFC had, and I, I don't think I'd ever want to leave. I would just follow them around wherever. Like yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it just seems like such cool times. It seems like there's also some rumblings about Masvidal maybe even targeting a UFC return, like nothing that's been confirmed from what I've seen, but it seems like
In
maybe like
March, right?
yeah, I was seeing March 2025 batted around a little bit, but nothing like solidified as far as a date or an opponent, but interesting all the same.
So I heard about that. It was like Leon Edwards in March 2025, and I'm like, oh shit. Because if the boss man's fighting, I mean February's out of the question because he won't hold a show if he's in training camp. And then if he fights in March, it's like, all right, we can't have it like okay, maybe after that, but no, he's got to take his week off because he leaves his family. So it's like as soon as he's done his fight, he goes back and spends a couple of weeks with his family. So if he does fight in March, the title fight probably won't be until sometime in April. But again, you got to make money. He's still got that fire burning inside him. I can't fault him for wanting to fight. So it's like the way I see it is I'm like, yeah, boss, go ahead, go fight. Make a ton of money. Because he's that guy. He's like, the more money I make, the better shows I can have and the more money I can pay you guys. Obviously, we're not going to make the kind of money that he's making, but I'm always down for a raise. And it's like there's nothing better than your boss, getting paid a few $1 million in pay-per-view points, coming back knowing he's got that extra bank going, yeah, we're going to do bonuses this show. You know what? We're going to pay everybody a little more. Because again, he knows what it's like to struggle. And yeah, so it's like the more money he makes, I feel like the more money we'll make. And so yeah, I'm all for him fighting whoever in March. But yeah, that puts my title fight up in the air of when it's going to be.
Yeah, just such a cool time in so many regards. Like I was saying before, we've talked a few times over the years, and it just seems like you're in such a great position now, and definitely love to see that. But I feel like I've been talking your ear off enough at this point, Jesse. I figured I'd give you the floor in case you had a final parting thought you wanted to add as we're wrapping up here, man. I appreciate you coming on Bare Knuckle Bowker tonight and just for giving me the time over the years in general.
Nah, of course. No, like I said, you're one of the most informed, knowledgeable guys that I do interviews with. It's like you do your research. You know a lot about me, past opponents. You know a lot about a lot of other people. Whereas I get some interviewers that don't know their fucking left hand from their right hand. They're like, okay, so you got a fight coming up. When and where is it? And who is it against? Like, I don't understand. Like, there's a lot of famous people that do that, and I don't know. But you, on the other hand, you always have so much information, And it's like, oh yeah, I did do that, didn't I? It's like you know more about me than I know about me, and so it's good to talk with interviewers like you. As for a final thought, that would be my final thought because I feel like I've talked more than you. So yeah, no, I'm good, man. I appreciate the phone call and keeping you up to date. And it's like I'm always down for an interview with you anytime you want it. I know my phone was broken and effed up before this, but took some time, but we still got it in.
Yeah, no, just as long as you're good, like that whole situation is sorted, you got like a new phone and etc.
That's why it's like I don't know where the camera thing is on this. And I was like, I've never had that problem before. It used to be, oh, there it is, bump. It's like now I don't know how a lot of this stuff works. And yeah, it's like you had to give me the permission to turn my camera on. I was like, well, that's news to me.
Yeah, as much as I use Zoom pretty regularly for this kind of stuff, I do also experience some snags where I'm like, I don't really know what's going on here. But what I do know is going on is you getting that Gamebred welterweight title shot next. And yeah, very excited to see what pans out with that. It seems like first quarter of next year or like something
Yep.
around there, maybe even early second quarter of next year. So exciting times, man. And just to reiterate, thanks for the time tonight. And yeah, we'll have to set up a chat whenever the title fight gets blocked in.
Sounds good to me, my man.